thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Pray, be seated. This parliament is now in session.
Item 3, oath of allegiance or affirmation of a new member. Item 4, confirmation of minutes.
Leader of government business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Morning to everyone in this honorable House. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the minutes of the proceedings of a sitting of the House of Representatives held at the Parliament Chamber, Mount Weldale, St. George's, on Tuesday, the 27th day of August 2024 at 9 a.m. be taken as read.
Honourable members, the question is that the minutes of the proceedings of a sitting of the House of Representatives held at the Parliament Chamber, Mount Weldale, St. George's, on Tuesday, 27th August 2024 at 9 a.m. be taken as read. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of government business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the minutes of the proceedings of a sitting of the House of Representatives held at the Parliament Chamber, Mount Weldale, St. George's, on Tuesday, the 27th of August 2024 at 9 a.m. be confirmed.
Honourable members, the question is that the minutes of the proceedings of a sitting of the House of Representatives held at the Parliament Chamber, Mount Weldale, St. George's, on Tuesday, 27th August 2024 at 9 a.m. be confirmed. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. The minutes confirmed. Leader of government business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the minutes of the proceedings of the ceremonial state opening of the third session of the 11th Parliament of Grenada, held at Parliament Chamber, Mount Weldale, St. George's, on Friday, the 4th of October 2024 at 10 a.m. be taken as read.
Honourable members, the question is that the minutes of the proceedings of the ceremonial state opening of the third session of the 11th Parliament of Grenada, held at the Parliament Chamber, Mount Weldale, St. George's, on Friday, the 4th October 2024 at 10 a.m. be taken as read. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of government business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the minutes of the proceedings of the ceremonial state opening of the third session of the 11th Parliament of Grenada, held at Parliament Chamber, Mount Weldale, St. George's, on Friday, the 4th of October 2024 at 10 a.m. be confirmed.
Honourable members, the question is that the minutes of the proceedings of the ceremonial state opening of the third session of the 11th Parliament of Grenada, held at Parliament Chamber, Mount Weldale, St. George's, on Friday, the 4th October 2024 at 10 a.m. be confirmed. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of government business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the minutes of the proceedings of a special joint sitting to celebrate the life of the late His Excellency Sir Daniel Williams, former Governor General, held at the Parliament Chamber, Mount Weldale, St. George's, on Tuesday, the 15th of October, 2024, at 10 a.m., be taken as read.
Honorable members, the question is that the minutes of the proceedings of a special joint sitting to celebrate the life of the late His Excellency Sir Daniel Williams, former Governor General, held at the Parliament Chamber, Mount Weldale, St. George's, on Tuesday, the 15th October 2024, at 10 a.m., be taken as read. Those of the opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the minutes of the proceedings of a special joint sitting to celebrate the life of the late His Excellency Sir Daniel Williams, former Governor General of Grenada, held at the Parliament Chamber, Mount Weldale, St. George's, on Tuesday, the 15th of October, 2024, at 10 a.m., be confirmed.
Honorable members, the question is that the minutes of the proceedings of a special joint sitting to celebrate the life of the late His Excellency Sir Daniel Williams, former Governor General, held at the Parliament Chamber, Mount Weldale, St. George's, on Tuesday, 15th October 2024, at 10 a.m., be confirmed. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Item 5, messages from the Governor General. Item 6, announcement by Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I wish to inform this Honorable House that we have some absentees today. Honorable Kieran James is out of state and won't be with us. So is Honorable Lennox Andrew, out of state. And Honorable Joseph Andal won't be here because he is unwell. I have information in my possession that says that Honorable Tevin Andrew won't be able to make it. Honorable Delma Thomas will be late, but she has indicated that she will attend today's sitting. Yeah, there she is. All right, I recognize the presence of the Honorable Delma Thomas. And now I wish to inform this Parliament that since we last met, I attended the 67 CPA conference in Australia, and there were some major conclusions that were taken at that conference. And I just read a few of the conclusions. One, parliaments should proactively explore all necessary measures and support systems to allow parliamentarians to undertake their term in office. I just read two more. Parliaments should continue to adapt and innovate to strengthen the governance system while ensuring the efforts respect and engage with tradition and local context. And the last one, I wish to read the Commonwealth parliaments should commit to integrate technological solutions to allow for inclusive participation in the electoral process and practices for all persons, even those living with disabilities. I wish to inform this Parliament for the year 2025, we are encouraging the use of artificial intelligence among parliamentarians. And we will be procuring the tools that allow our parliamentarians to use artificial intelligence, and we will do some training with respect to AI. And the final one that I wish to announce is that the Commonwealth Parliamentary Academy is a portal, a resource portal that is online. Parliamentarians who have any interest in the courses there can sign on and do the courses. Some of them are free and others have to be paid for. And the Parliament of Grenada is committed to assisting with the payment of a particular course that a parliamentarian may choose. Those are my announcements.
Item 7, presentation of petitions. Item 8, presentation of papers and report from select committees.
Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to lay on the table the following reports and papers. Item number 1, report of the Director of Audit on the public accounts of Grenada for the year ended 31st December 2016. 2, report of the Director of Audit on the public accounts of Grenada for the year ended 31st December 2017. 3, report of the Director of Audit on the public accounts of Grenada for the year ended 31st December 2018. 4, report of the Director of Audit on the public accounts of Grenada for the year ended 31st December 2019. 5, statement on the Supplementary Appropriation Bill 2024, Fiscal Resilience Oversight Committee, FROC, 10th September 2024. 6, fiscal resilience, suspension of the public debt target and primary balance rule, Order 2024, to be laid in the House of Representatives and accompanied by the memorandum required under Section 9(2) of the Fiscal Resilience Act 2023. 7, annual report, Grenada Investment Development Corporation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Leader of Government Business. Honorable members, those reports are now laid in the House.
Item 9, unopposed private business. Item 10, questions. Item 11, urgent questions on the provisions of Standing Order number 20, subsection 1, notice of questions. Item 12, statement by ministers.
Honorable MP for St. Andrews Northwest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to update this honorable House of some of the initiative that is taken on by the Ministry of Mental Health, Wellness and Religious Affairs and the Ministry of Youth and Sports. Mr. Speaker, I start with the Ministry of Youth and Sports and to inform the honorable House that the Empower program has completed its life skill component, and last week, Thursday, we held our quarterly session at the Trade Center. This is a place where the participants came together to reflect on progress, share experience, and gain insights on the next phase. Mr. Speaker, Cabinet has also approved an increase to the stipend of the Empower participants from $800 to $200. From $800 to $1,000, so $200 increase. My apologies. And this increase will be in effect from the 1st of December. Also, Cabinet has approved an increase in the grant from $2,400 to $3,000. Mr. Speaker, the Empower program now includes a mentorship component that provides guidance and ensures sustainability during the startup phase. And so we will not leave them after the one-year period, but there will be a hand-holding process and also continuous follow-up. Mr. Speaker, in the month of November, we started a series of youth talk engaging young people across the country. The series fosters youth empowerment, strengthens connection with the community, and encourage active civic participation. Today, we are having one in St. Mark, and tomorrow, please God, in Carriacou, and we are hoping to climax with a national youth rally, which will be held this Sunday at the Radisson Ballroom. And Mr. Speaker, this will bring together young people across the country where we will launch our policy as a government as it relates to youth development. There will also be a recognition ceremony, and one of the highlights for this recognition will be our national hero, one of our national heroes, athletic cricketing hero, Afi Fletcher, will be recognized on Sunday with other national heroes. So, Mr. Speaker, we are inviting all young people across Grenada to come out on Sunday. There will be talent, there will be youth will also showcase their skills. There will be an expo aspect starting from 2 o'clock. So we encourage our young people to be there. Mr. Speaker, also to inform this Honorable House that Cabinet has launched a new initiative as it relates to empowering our women and girls. And this new initiative is called Elevate Her. It's an initiative aimed at empowering unemployed and underemployed women in Grenada between the ages of 18 and 35. This program seeks to equip participants with essential skills, national and regionally recognized certification, and resources to improve the employability and create sustainable pathways to full-time employment. And Mr. Speaker, you may ask, what makes this different from the Imani program? Mr. Speaker, there's a clear pathway to employment, and there's an clear exit strategy. So no one would stay in this program more than 12 to 18 months, Mr. Speaker, but also we will be working along with these young women to create cooperatives in some instances, to help them with startup for their own businesses. And also we are working with the private sector to ensure that once we put these trainees to be in your care to train, that there is a pathway for clear employment. And so, Mr. Speaker, registration will start, the process will be online from this week. However, our youth, the members, staff from the ministry will be going out into the different parishes from Monday to register people, to register these women. And so more will be given within the media in the coming days on how you can register. Also to say that we have started negotiation with MCC, and so we have started assisting in renovating some of the buildings. There are 2 buildings there that were destroyed since Hurricane Ivan, and we have construction work have started there, I think either yesterday or Sunday, to renovate the building, and so we'll enter into partnership with MCC in assisting in providing those training initiatives for our young women, and also we are hoping to include young men in those initiatives in 2025. Mr. Speaker, within the Ministry of Youth and Sport, we continue to provide training for young people. We continue to look for ways and means to empower and inspire young people. And so we have a community youth leadership training. The first one was held sometime last month in St. George's, where you had in excess of 50 young people in groups and individually being trained. Last Saturday and Sunday in St. Andrew, we had in excess of 30 young people trained, and so Cabinet has also approved a grant of $5,000 that can be used not only by those trained in the leadership training, but also for our youth ambassadors and our youth parliamentarian. And just to inform this honorable house that the youth election will be held on the 5th of December, and to say that yesterday the registration process closed, so you no longer can register, but we encourage young people who register to go out there and vote for your candidate, and this candidate will be your voice in the community for a period of 2 years. We continue to provide all the necessary training, all the necessary support for young people, to also inform that on the 4th, I think, of December, our cyber security training will be held, where 100 people, so it's young and they might be a little more than over the age of 35, will be trained in cybersecurity. It's government trust in providing skill training that will result in the real employment with the real salaries, Mr. Speaker. And so, as a government, we'll continue to look for ways and means to empower our young people across the tri-island state of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. As it relates to mental health, last week we had the Mount Sinai team in our trust to improve the overall healthcare in Grenada. So as it relates to mental health, they were here, mental health experts, training our staff in mental health. And so we'll have training. So the people who receive the training will be able to train other people, because we will start real training at the level of the community as it relates to mental health, Mr. Speaker. We believe that we have to start in the school, and we have been seeing some of the challenges. Just last week, Thursday, I had to visit a family where a young man, brilliant, handsome young man, took his life, Mr. Speaker. And so I sympathize with the Simon family, but to say to our young people, we are here to help. And to say to every one of us, let us be our brother's keeper. Let us look at ways and means of not bullying or not stigmatizing, but providing a support, not only young people, but everyone across our country. As a ministry, we are committed to continuing to provide that necessary support, and in our 2025 budget, we will elaborate on what we will do as a ministry. Just to inform, as it relates to the drug and alcohol rehabilitation, the site has been cleared. We are in the process of fencing and erecting a billboard. Seriously, Mr. Speaker, saying to the public that come 2025, boots will be on the ground in Maribor, and showing, Mr. Speaker, that we provide this avenue where our men and women and even young people who are involved in drugs and alcohol abuse can get real support. And Mr. Speaker, we appreciate that this building would not be 2 or 3 months. And so, as a government, we will look at some level of outpatient clinic, which will be dealt with in the budget, where we can provide some outpatient support while we prepare for this major initiative. Last week, Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Infrastructure, Mental Health, MIT, we walked through the Monge Mental Hospital, appreciating that there are a lot of infrastructural work to be done. And so, before the end of the year, the OT building will start repair work there, and in 2025, we'll continue to develop the infrastructural work on all buildings within the Monge facility. We are improving the aesthetics and the environment and providing all the assistance so that we can generally improve mental health across the Tri-Island state of Grenada, Carriacou, and Martinique. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable MP for St. Andrew Northwest. Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, good morning. In my capacity as Minister for Infrastructure and Physical Development, I just wish to reiterate some of the information we shared with the public last Tuesday. And as you're aware, Mr. Speaker, last Tuesday, we had to, in fact, postpone this sitting of Parliament as a result of the significant precipitation that Grenada has experienced, particularly in the month of November. The statistics from the Meteorological Office at Point Celine, and you'd appreciate that Point Celine is perhaps the part of the island that gets the least rain, indicated that we have received significantly more rainfall in November than we have normally received in the month of November traditionally. And certainly compared to the rest of the months of the year, we've also received significantly more rainfall. Combine that, Mr. Speaker, with the fact that Hurricane Beryl would have wrought significant damage to the forests and the agricultural sector, particularly in St. Patrick and St. Andrew. That has significantly compromised our forest cover. And you recall that prior to that, we had a 6-month drought. So it means, Mr. Speaker, that it has left the island very vulnerable to any level of significant rainfall, because we are having much faster runoff. We are having significant landslides. In St. David alone, a preliminary count suggested we had as many as 29 landslides over a 48-hour period. And obviously, the Chief Technical Officer had indicated at the press conference that perhaps in excess of 50 just in the 2 days prior to the press conference. So it means, Mr. Speaker, that significant damage has been done to our roadways, to our culverts, to our drains, to both public and private retaining walls. And combined with high tides, there's been significant flooding in many low-lying areas. The town of Grenville, Montrouge, River Road, Lassages, and many other areas. And so extensive damage has been done to both private and public physical infrastructure, including some homes where a few homes were completely demolished by landslides. As you're aware, Mr. Speaker, we also had the very tragic situation of a young mother and teacher and wife losing her life when her vehicle that she was in was swept away by water, and regrettably and sadly, she passed away. And so, Mr. Speaker, obviously making sure that we are better prepared to respond to and to minimize loss of life, limb, and property from climatic events is something that has to be ingrained in our behavior, in our culture. And so when we talk about resilience and sustainability, it's not an event, Mr. Speaker. It really has to become a way of life. So there has been significant damage, in some instances more damage than caused by Hurricane Beryl. At the press conference, the general manager of NOASA would have indicated that at one time as much as 60% of NOASA's dams and water treatment facilities were severely impacted by the excess rainfall and the landslide. So I think he's put the estimated cost of damage as much as almost 900,000 and probably counting. We are yet to have financial implications of the cost of the damage to infrastructure, the damage to private property, and the flooding, but we know it will run in the millions of dollars. Just the cost to clear, block bridges, drains, culverts to clear up the landslide would have required a massive operation, requiring the use of significant heavy equipment from all over the country. And that alone will run the Ministry of Infrastructure and by extension the taxpayers of Grenada into the millions of dollars. So, Mr. Speaker, we are going to have to do a comprehensive review of the physical infrastructure in Grenada, particularly the roads, the culverts, the bridges, some of which, honestly, Mr. Speaker, simply cannot take the volume of water or the level of debris that is coming down. If you take the Eastern Main Road, for example, you would see that many of the bridges are built in a manner that simply does not allow debris to flow beneath them. You can take the bridge at the Lackalum entrance. There's a concrete column running beneath the bridge that leaves literally maybe 1.5 or 2 feet of space. And the level of bamboo and the kind of debris that comes down the river simply can't pass. And so it hits the bridge, and then the bridge is on the pass is blocked, and then the water gets into the road. And then we have significant and massive flooding, oftentimes which does significant damage to private property as well. So this is something that we are going to have to take on as a national priority, because if we don't address it, Mr. Speaker, it will not get better. It also means, Mr. Speaker, that we are going to have to take on as a national project, not just the replanting of our spices, but the replanting of our forests and the reforestation of Grenada. If we do not do so, the landslides will continue and the damage will continue. And Nawasa has already emphasized the fact that our water catchment systems are going to have to change, and a lot more investment is going to have to be made in addressing how we manage the velocity of water, which comes downstream into our rivers and eventually empties out into our low-lying areas. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, a lot of the damage to private property is related to the fact that the private properties have been built in areas that really should have no physical development. They are built in wetlands that have been dumped, low-lying areas, along riverbanks, along the mangroves, and sometimes in the mangroves, on hillsides that, just looking at it, says it is unstable, and we continue to build in those places. Mother Nature will not bend or break or go under or over buildings. They will go through them. And we're seeing clear evidence of this as a result of the flooding. So this is something, Mr. Speaker, that from an education perspective, we are going to have to ramp up. The Planning and Development Authority are also going to have to enforce for the sake of people. Because when you build in areas that are flood prone or prone to landslides and the landslide come, you are losing your own investment and also risking your life and your limb. So, Mr. Speaker, this is something I will provide a more comprehensive report after we have the full assessment from the Ministry of Infrastructure as to the extent of the damage and the estimated cost of the immediate cleanup and the likely cost of shoring up a lot of the physical structures that have been compromised. I also want to take this opportunity to report to the nation that the majority of the works on H.A. Blaze Street, which again resulted from a collapsed retaining wall, has been completed. And so vehicular access has once again been restored at the H.A. Blaze Street as of Monday morning. The Molineux landslip, Mr. Speaker, all of the main structural work for the road or the bridge, because it's essentially a bridge that has been built, is complete. The first laying of the asphalt should be taking place as we speak, and therefore we expect, subject to weather conditions, that this road should be complete and be traversable within the first and second week of December. As you're aware, Mr. Speaker, during the period of unseasonal weather, we did in fact open the road to allow for vehicular traffic to ease some of the congestion that arose. So, Mr. Speaker, we are well on our way to completing this significant project, which has been a major challenge to commuters and pedestrians living on the western part of Grenada. And so we wish to commend the contractor the consultant and the Ministry of Infrastructure for the significant work done in undertaking what has been a challenging task. But I think if you see it from the sea and if you see it from the road, it has in fact added to the landscape. We have to stabilize the down slope and the top slope, and most of what is down slope is essentially loose earth that has been dumped. So the contractors will also be treating with this. We intend to take on another major area on the west coast, which has been neglected for decades. That is the area known as Mabuya, which is the piece of road between the entrance to Mount Granby, Mount Nesbitt, and Guav. And so, Mr. Speaker, we intend to also address this. Similarly, we also intend to address the Marquis Bridge, which is already compromised, because we appreciate it's on the Eastern Main Road, and if not dealt with soon, could also provide major challenges to pedestrians and motorists on the Eastern Main Road. But, Mr. Speaker, the truth is there has been significant deterioration and neglect of many of these bridges, drains, culverts, retaining walls. We can take a place like Woolwich Road, for example, in the town of St. George, which has been like this for almost 40 years, since I've been going to PBC, where you can see with the naked eyes that large portions of the road have broken off and the retaining walls have fallen and they've not been addressed. So those are a lot of the major infrastructure work that we are going to have to do just to keep the existing infrastructure in place so that people can continue passing. So I wanted to provide this update to the nation, and I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the time.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister. I think we may move on.
Item 13, personal explanations. Item 14, motion, sorry.
Leader of His Majesty Opposition.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand on an item, personal explanation to inform the Honorable House of a specific situation as it relates to my own constituency and the concerns being raised by everyone concerned. As I stepped in, or the Honorable Prime Minister talking about the problems related to areas of infrastructural damages, particularly on the western side. It is known that we've had major problems before, and it is known that one would always remember that Kotomeli incident where scores of people were killed, and therefore one has to be specifically very concerned about what is taking place on the western side. And I just want to inform that in recent, with Beryl's, passage of Beryl, there's a major area of concern opposite the community center in Brazan, where if you pass there, as I pass, you almost have to drive past, forget the hump, because you look up, you'll see the stones hanging down, and that can be a major, major problem. I have written to the Minister of Works, and of course we've called to the Ministry of Works outside of the direct communication to the Minister of Works, and therefore I want to bring it to the attention of the entire Parliament, with all members of government and opposition here, that I'm very concerned about that area. So I would expect there need to be some serious intervention very soon, because that can lead to some serious damage to persons physically and otherwise. So I felt it's necessary at this juncture this morning to raise this, because we have not heard from the Ministry of Works or no reply yet from the minister concerned. So I thought it's necessary. I want to take no chance with this. So in case something happens, people will know I've done everything that I ought to do relative to to this particular area. So I just want to make this point this morning, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Item 14, motions.
Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Whereas debate on the gracious address delivered by the Governor General of Grenada on the occasion of the ceremonial state opening of the third session of the 11th Parliament on Friday, the 4th of October 2024, was deferred to a date to be named. Be it resolved that the said address be deferred to a date to be announced.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that whereas the debate on the gracious address delivered by the Governor General on the occasion of the ceremonial state opening of the third session of the 11th Parliament on 4th October 2024 was deferred to a date to be named, be it resolved that the said address be now deferred to a date to be named. Members of that opinion, say aye. You want it to? Okay. Of the contrary opinion, say no? The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, whereas Standing Order number 69, subsection 1 of the House of Representatives provides for the election of a committee to be known as the Public Accounts Committee, and whereas it is further provided that the committee be elected at the first sitting of each session at which the business of the House, other than the reading of the throne speech, is transacted, be it resolved that this Honorable House do it now elect its members to the said committee.
Honorable members, proposed is, whereas Standing Order number 69, section 1 of the Standing Orders of the House of Representatives provides for the election of a committee to be known as the Public Accounts Committee, and whereas it is further provided that the committee to be elected at the first sitting of each session at which the business of the House, other than the reading of the throne speech, is transacted. Be it resolved that this Honorable House doth now elect its members to the said committee. Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to nominate the following members to the Public Accounts Committee. Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell, Chairman. Honorable Dr. Clarice Modest Cowen. Honorable Kate Lewis. Senator the Honorable Roderick Sinclair, and Senator the Honorable Salim Bahman.
Honorable members, the question is that the Public Accounts Committee be composed of the following members. The leader of, Public Accounts Committee, Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell, Chairman, Honorable Dr. Clarice Modest Cowen, member. Honorable Kate Lewis, member. Honorable Roderick Sinclair, member. And Honorable Salim Rahman, member. Those with that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Leader of government business.
Mr. Speaker, whereas Standing Order number 71 of the House of Representatives Standing Orders provide for the appointment of a committee to consist of a chairman and 2 members to be known as the Standing Orders Committee, which shall be elected as soon as it may be after the beginning of each session of Parliament. Be it resolved that this Honorable House do it now appoint the members of the said committee.
The question proposed is, whereas Standing Order number 70, subsection 1 of the House of Representatives Standing Orders provides for the appointment of a committee to consist of a chairman and 2 members to be known as the Standing Orders Committee, which shall be elected as soon as maybe after the beginning of each session. Be it resolved that this Honorable House does now appoint the members of the said committee. Leader of government business.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Speaker, sorry. Mr. Speaker, I beg to nominate the following members to the Standing Orders Committee. Honorable Dr. Clarice Modus Cowan, member. Honorable Tevin Andrews, member. Honorable Joseph Andel, member. Honorable Emmeline Pear, member. And under the chairmanship, Mr. Speaker, of the Honorable Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Honorable members, the question is that the Standing Orders Committee be composed of the following members: the Honorable Speaker, Leo Keto, Chairman; the Honorable Tevin Andrew, member; Honorable Joseph Andal, member; Honorable Emmeline Pierre, member. Those of that opinion, say aye. Of the contrary opinion, say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. The Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are Standing Order number 72. Just one sec, please. Yes. We are Standing Order number 72 of the House of Representatives Standing Orders provide for the appointment of a committee to consist of the Speaker as chairman and 4 members to be known as a House Committee. Be it resolved that this Honorable House do it now appoint 4 members to the said committee. No, sorry. Mr. Speaker, sorry. My apology, Mr. Speaker. Okay. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, whereas Standing Order number 73 of the House of Representatives Standing Orders provide for the appointment of a committee to consist of the Speaker as chairman and 4 members to be known as the Committee of Privileges, which shall be elected as soon as may be after the beginning of each session. Be it resolved that the Honorable House doeth now appoint the 4 members to the said committee.
Honorable members, the question proposed is, whereas standing orders number 70, subsection 3 of the House of Representatives standing orders provides for the appointment of a committee to consist of the Speaker as chairman and 4 members to be known as the Committee of Privileges, which shall be elected as soon as maybe after the beginning of its session. Be it resolved that this Honorable House doth now appoint the 4 members of the said committee. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to nominate the following members to the Committee of Privileges. Honorable Andy Williams, member. Honorable Ron L. Redhead, member. Honorable Peter David, member. Honorable Kate Louis Peters, member, under the chairmanship of his Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that the Committee of Privileges be composed of the following members with the Speaker as chairman. The Honorable members are Honorable Andy Williams, the Honorable Ron Redhead, Honorable Peter David, and Honorable Kate Lewis. Those with that opinion, say aye. Of the contrary opinion, say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Item 15, bills.
Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to introduce for the first reading a bill for an act shortly entitled Bank Holiday Amendment Act 2024.
The bill which seeks to amend the schedule to the Bank Holidays Act, Cap 25, the Principal Act, to observe the 19th day of October as National Heroes Day as a bank holiday in Grenada, shortly entitled Bank Holidays Amendment Bill 2024.
Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the relevant standing order of the House of Representatives be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all its stages at this sitting.
Honorable members, the question is that the relevant standing order of the House be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all stages at this sitting. All those who have that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the second reading of the bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a second time. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this bill, Mr. Speaker, contains 2 clauses. Clause 1, Mr. Speaker, refers to the short title for which this is a bill. Clause 2, Mr. Speaker, is to amend the schedule of the Principal Act so that, Mr. Speaker, the second Monday in August, and the day following which shall be known and referred to as Carnival August celebrations, Mr. Speaker, be no longer having to receive annual permission, Mr. Speaker, from the Governor General. But now that this, Mr. Speaker, bill is being passed, there will be no longer such requirement. But the holiday, the second half of that Carnival Tuesday will automatically be a holiday. Also, Mr. Speaker, the 19th day of October for the last 2 years, that's 2024 and 2023, were referred to as Heroes' Holidays, had to receive permission granted by the Governor General on both occasions. Mr. Speaker, by enacting this legislation, no longer would we have to get annual permission to so have this, that particular day be identified as a public holiday, but it would be automatic from here on, unless another bill is passed to so revoke. So, Mr. Speaker, it's a very simple bill, with 2 clauses, just to amend the schedule to have the October 19th as a public holiday and the second Tuesday in August as a full holiday. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Leader of Government Business. Do I see the light of MP for St. Andrews Southeast?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Go ahead, Honorable MP.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm still following your instructions from some months ago. Mr. Speaker, I rise to speak on this bill that has been presented before this House. And I wish to address, Mr. Speaker, the specific subject of October 19th being named Heroes Day. So, Speaker, when we think of October 19th, anytime you think of October 19th, there's only one October 19th that resonates. October 19th, 1983. Mr. Speaker, I consider it one of Grenada's most politically sensitive and controversial days in our history. Mr. Speaker, on the 19th of October, 1983, the Prime Minister of Grenada was executed along with his colleagues. Other ordinary Grenadians, Mr. Speaker, lost their lives on October 19th, 1983. All due, Mr. Speaker, to political conflict. Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure if we are thinking deeply about this proposed decision. Lest we forget, on October 19, 1983, Mr. Speaker, these individuals were lined up against a wall, and they were gunned down with machine guns, October 19th, 1983. Mr. Speaker, the painful events of that day can still be referred to as the darkest day of our Grenadian history. Mr. Speaker, I believe that this is the closest that Grenada has ever come to a civil war. Until now, Mr. Speaker, many Grenadians are still trying to come to grips, are still trying to cope with the trauma of October 19th, 1983. Mr. Speaker, we cannot be serious about attempting to name October 19th, 1983, October 19th, and that is why I say, whenever you think of October 19th, whichever year, 2025, 2030, what resonates is October 19th, 1983, almost synonymous. So, Mr. Speaker, it was a day when citizens fought against each other. Mr. Speaker, 41 years later, families are still asking for closure. Families are still mourning and grieving over their loved ones. As a matter of fact, they're still praying at least to have the remains of their loved ones. Mr. Speaker, while I do believe that our history must be commemorated, we must. But to name October 19th Heroes' Day, in my opinion, might be very insensitive and goes against any attempt to unify our country. Mr. Speaker, I'm yet to hear any cogent, and maybe there'll be some attempts, but I'm yet to hear any cogent argument of why October 19th should be celebrated or observed as National Heroes Day. Mr. Speaker, when you think of October 19th, it carries a deep pain, hurt, a reflection that doesn't make you feel that you want to celebrate anything. Mr. Speaker, when we think of Heroes' Day, on the contrary, you think of celebration. You think of national pride. You think about recognizing people of all walks of life, of all political affiliation, of all ideologies and philosophies, Mr. Speaker. You think of recognizing them for the contributions that they have made. The question is, why October 19th? Mr. Speaker, October 19th was a day people still recall, shoot at first sight. The curfew, Mr. Speaker, the activities that aggravate pain and hurt for so many people. Mr. Speaker, we can choose to be insensitive, or we can choose to find an appropriate day that does not erupt so much emotions among people. So, Speaker, except we are deaf, we must have heard the reaction to the last two celebrations. Mr. Speaker, I heard people for the very first time calling in on programs, crying, breaking down in tears, big grown men, recalling the events of October 19th and breaking down in tears. But that is just one aspect. Mr. Speaker, the anger that I've heard just over the decision to temporarily observe the day over the past 2 years, the anger, the emotions, the threats, Mr. Speaker, I'm saying, have we been listening? Mr. Speaker, compounding that was the order, the executive order pronounced
by the leadership of this country that on that day, no one should play amplified music. Almost giving you a kind of coffee feeling. Mr. Speaker, you know, I really believe that much thought did not go into this. I honestly cannot believe that significant thought went into this. Mr. Speaker, even Christian holidays do not receive that kind of executive order. What are we saying? What message are we sending? But do we want to limit a celebration of heroes to that solemnity that we're promoting? Or do we want to expand this to a jubilant occasion where people, generally, whether it's during the revolution, whether the days of Uncle Gary, whether it's today, whenever, that people, just people, can be celebrated? Mr. Speaker, I am curious as to what measure of mandate did the government receive to propose that October 19th be observed as Heroes Day. Because when you go on the ground, in the constituencies, Mr. Speaker, people, regardless of their political affiliation, are saying, why not another day? People everywhere, why not another day? So this brings me to the point, Mr. Speaker, that controversial issues like these, and we must have been hearing the comments, controversial issues like these require consultation with the people, consultation with the masses. And so I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, this morning, absolutely nothing wrong with doing something about October 19th to remember, especially those people who lost their lives. I have absolutely no problem with this. I also have no problem, Mr. Speaker, with naming a day as Heroes Day. But I feel strongly, Mr. Speaker, this morning, Heroes Day must not be celebrated on October 19th. And I do hope, Mr. Speaker, that the government would listen to people. Listen to people. It's not strange. It doesn't take high science to understand why the turnout was so poor last October 19th. There are people who do not mind celebrating Heroes Day, but they will not attend a Heroes Day celebration on October 19th. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, I am certain that there could be heroes to be recognized who are still carrying the scars of October 19th, 1983. There are family members who will qualify at some point or the other to be named heroes who are still traumatized and probably don't ever leave their homes on October 19th, 1983. Mr. Speaker, you notice what's even happening to me. Every time I say October 19th, I say 1983. And that's not deliberate in some of the cases. I close, Mr. Speaker, with a comment made to me by an individual who was specially invited to Progress Park on October 19th. That individual said to me, Ms. Pierre, I could not go. I am still taking medication to deal with what happened on October 19th, 1983. That individual would have liked to be there, but couldn't pull herself out of her house to attend the activity. I'm simply asking this morning, this is not political. This is about emotional intelligence. This is about understanding what other people are experiencing. This is about understanding that we have 365 days.
And it's just logically possible that we could find another day that we can name Heroes Day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable MP, for St. Andrews Southeast. And I now invite the Honorable Prime Minister. Take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll seek your indulgence to ask to be excused for part of the debate. I did promise the Member of Parliament for Carriacou and Petite Martinique that I would attend an event in Carriacou in which 27 homes, which were gifted by an organization from the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago to the citizens of Carriacou, are being handed over this morning. The 27 prefab houses that have been built mostly in the Dumfries area, and given the significant need for housing as a result of the damage to the housing stock of Carriacou and Petite Martinique, I thought it important that I attend to show my gratitude for what is obviously a significant contribution to the housing stock of Carriacou and Petite Martinique. So I would seek your leave to be excused from the debate. But before I do so, Mr. Speaker, I do want to take the opportunity to lend my support to the bill. First, Mr. Speaker, I think the practice, or I should say the law should reflect the practice, because the truth is what we call Carnival Tuesday has become a full-fledged bank or public holiday, perhaps for the last decade or even more. And rather than have the Governor General and the team of the Ministry of Legal Affairs every year scramble to issue a proclamation, Mr. Speaker, obviously we sought to have the law match the reality of having the second Monday in August declared a full bank holiday. There might be a need for an additional debate as to whether the 1st of August should not in fact be a holiday or the holiday, bearing in mind that I think the original intent was that the 1st of August be marked as perhaps the most pivotal holiday in our civilization. The 1st of August, 1838, marked the end of British slavery. Yes, formal end of British slavery in Grenada and the British West Indies. And I say it's perhaps the most important day in our civilization because it at least marked that the law, for the first time, was recognizing that people of African descent were human beings and not property. And you can't build a civilization and you can't build a free state if one human being in law is viewed as the property of another. And 200-300 years later, there are still parts of the world where young men and women are being sold into slavery, or where women in particular are being sold into slavery. So, Mr. Speaker, I think since we're talking about meaningful and non-meaningful holidays, we need to address whether as a country we are serious about meaningful or non-meaningful days, and whether or not, if we truly appreciate the significance of the fact that our ancestors were bought and sold as property, whether as a country we should not be marking the 1st of August as perhaps the most important day in our nation's history to reflect that our ancestors, at least in law, for the first time, were being treated as human beings and not the property of others. Mr. Speaker, as it relates to the National Heroes Bank holiday and the naming of October 19th as National Heroes Day, my contributions to the debate, Mr. Speaker, are as follows. Picking a day or any other day out of the 365 days of the year goes back to the very point I made, which is we are going to have to be serious about it as a nation as to whether we want to teach our people our history and the challenges we face as a nation. This is about national heroes, not a hero. Everyone's a hero. A parent to his child is a hero. A child to his parent. A good Samaritan who helps you along the way is a hero. We are talking about national hero in the context of statehood and nationhood. That's the first point. Mr. Speaker, if you're going to name a day as National Heroes Day in the context of Grenadian history, there is no more heroic act than a Prime Minister, members of the Cabinet, and the citizens who support and defend them laying down their lives for this country. There could be no further heroic act. There could be no further act of martyrdom for one's country than having your life taken violently, tragically, in defense of Grenada, in defense of the ordinary man and woman of Grenada, and in defense of a Prime Minister and the members of his cabinet. So heroism, Mr. Speaker, comes in all forms, and most times those who become heroes don't choose to become heroes. It is by their selflessness and the act of giving, and giving the ultimate, their lives, for people, and in this case for nation, that one could truly be seen as a hero. So you see, Mr. Speaker, I probably would not have said anything, because I think we would have assumed all right-thinking, sober-minded citizens who are prepared to think about others rather than themselves would support this bill. But I listened to the member for St. Andrew Southeast say, I feel strongly this morning. I feel. Oh. Mr. Speaker, this is not about how I feel. This is about a nation. This is about sometimes confronting the difficult feelings that we have. And this is about, in difficult times, leading and making the right decision. What we have had, Mr. Speaker, is a deliberate attempt to downplay, ignore, and pretend that October 19th didn't happen. Since 1984, Mr. Speaker, since the powers that be put together the new National Party, and since it is the new National Party that has dominated electoral politics and has won in Grenada, Mr. Speaker, actually went on. Because you see, when we talk about, I have no problem in acknowledging October 19th or saying something should be done, I actually looked and I checked. The member for St. Andrew Southeast, according to Wikipedia, has been a member of parliament since 2003, and served from 2003 to 2008, and again from 2013 to 2022, and is still serving. Where was your advocacy for acknowledging October 19th? Where was your advocacy for talking about the pain and the suffering and the need for closure? So don't come here with the sanctimonious, holier than thou, I feel commentary. As painful as October 19th is, Mr. Speaker, as difficult as it is, part of nationhood is about growth. And you're not going to grow if you don't confront difficult and challenging episodes in our history, attempting to ignore it. Imagine, Mr. Speaker, for all of my adult life, on October 19th, people get up here and go to work as if nothing happened. No church service, no official state, government, parliament, judicial or executive recognition of the fact that our Prime Minister and his cabinet colleagues were executed in public. you go to the fort, except for the plaque erected by the few private citizens who've carried this torch. No recognition whatsoever by a country that its prime minister was executed. And those who held the power for decades to at least write a letter, to at least say to schools, even if we aren't giving it a public holiday, observe it, mark it, talk about it, teach it. The Honorable MP held the post of Minister for Education, Human Resource Development, Religious Affairs, and Information. So, Mr. Speaker, if you give holidays on days that mean nothing, that does not evoke emotion, or at least debate or discussion, what are you giving the holiday for? What are you giving the holiday for? If you believe Christ was born on the 25th of December, you'll give the holiday on the 24th? Or on the 23rd? Because there might be people in the country who are not Christians. So they'll object and say, well, that should not be a holiday because I'm a Muslim, I'm not getting the holiday. If you believe Christ rose on Easter Sunday, you'll give the holiday on the Sunday before? If you truly believe October 19th, and according to you, when you say 19th, you automatically think 83. Is that ingrained in us? What other day should we acknowledge as National Heroes Day? A meaningless day in the middle of July? In the middle of January? In the middle of December? So you see, Mr. Speaker, we have to go past this always attempting to appear to try and score political points because something might be controversial, or there might be persons who may not necessarily support it for emotional reasons. I completely understand that. We fully appreciate there may be some reservations, there may be some doubts. The people who have been pained the most, the wife of Morris Bishop. Mr. Speaker, she was at the event on the 19th of October, 2023. She acknowledged that she had almost given up on Grenada. So you see, Mr. Speaker, if they had made any attempt to do something for October 19th, to recognize the day, to acknowledge the day, even a church service, we probably wouldn't be here today. You had a blank canvas, you had the blankest of the canvases, the earliest of the canvases from since 1984. And you ignored the canvas. What you'd have us do is have October 19th go by as if nothing has happened. So don't come here and talk about lest we forget. What have you done to recognize so that we would not forget? Where is the textbook you commissioned as Minister of Education to investigate and teach and tell the story and recognize the pain and difficulty? Mr. Speaker, up to October, we were being briefed by the U.S. Army through the efforts of U.S. congressmen and women, and in particular Congresswoman Barbara Lee, to again go back at the United States government and army to interrogate them about the facts surrounding the bodies of Maurice, his cabinet colleagues, because we truly understand and appreciate the significance to those who've lost their loved ones of at least some rational, plausible explanation as to why the bodies have never been delivered or found. So, Mr. Speaker, passion runs both ways. Feelings run both ways. And I want to conclude on this point. This notion that we're trying to push, that everything must be about celebration and party and music, is not going to drown out the pain. The pain isn't going to go away. Saying go on fete on October 19th, or get drunk, or have a good time, is not going to take away the pain of October 19th. Nothing is going to take away the pain. But it certainly would be more painful, and it certainly is more painful to pretend it didn't happen. It will be a bigger tragedy to not acknowledge the pain, the sorrow, the tragedy, the hurt, the ongoing hurt, the fact that the pain will never disappear for those who lost their loved ones. But if we have any respect for them, if we believe in human dignity, then at least we will be respectful and solemn and recognize the ultimate sacrifice made by those who lost their lives and by those who have to live with the fact that their loved ones have lost their lives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
PM, okay. All right. Honorable MP for the Tongue of St. George.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to make comments on this issue. And of course, it's a controversial issue, we recognize that. And I think the Member of Parliament for St. David, through his discourse, made reference to October 19th as a painful day. And it was. I mean, for those of us who experienced October 19th, it was an extremely painful day. But I think we're here to discuss the question of heroes and interrogate how do we pay tribute to our heroes. I don't think there's a dispute, and Member of Parliament for St. David, I recognize and I pay tribute to the fact that we are considering paying respect to our heroes. Because, and I welcome it. In fact, I welcome the fact that there is a consideration for our heroes. But there are several issues involved in that. Firstly, a definition of what is a hero historically in Grenada. We have to discuss that. We have to discuss who are the heroes. And we have to discuss what day is best to pay tribute to the heroes. I mean, there are people, for example, there are some heroes, and I want to pay a tribute to the heroes. Some people acknowledge, there are people who are acknowledged as heroes in a context of Grenada. One, T. Marishu. Not because he's a man from the town of St. George, but he's known as the father of federation. So I think he's a hero. I think Julian Fedor, who fought against colonialism, slavery, I think we acknowledge he's a hero. But you know, the closer you get to the people, the more controversy arises. So Gary, Eric Matthew Gary, is a hero, but to some not. Maurice Bishop, in the view of many, is a hero, but to some not. But in order to arrive at a consensus, we must have this discussion. We must have this discussion. These issues are always accompanied by controversy. Why? Because of what we have in our society, which is a deeply divided society along several lines. So there are people who would say Gary was a hero, and there are people who say he was not. There may even be people who say, I saw recently there's a monarchist group in Grenada. I was quite surprised to read about this monarchist group who wants to maintain the monarchy. To them, all of these people here are not heroes. The main issue, I think, Mr. Speaker, is we have to pay tribute to our heroes, but we must have a discussion among our people. Because you see, this discussion can do two things. It can bring us together, and we can agree to disagree. And I believe we found that, because there are people who believe Gary is a hero, and at the same time believe that Bishop is a hero. So you find that we are finding ways and spaces where we can unite on the issue. So I don't want us to conflate the two issues. There is no one sitting in this house who says we should not celebrate Heroes Day. The question is how? The question is, how do we involve our people in that process? And one of the ways we can do it is what was indicated earlier. Let us have some more discussion. How, when, where, and for what? So, Mr. Speaker, let us not create further division on the issue in this House. Let us see if we can find, why didn't we establish a bipartisan committee? And I keep coming back to that, to discuss this issue. Why can't people on both sides contribute to what is a hero, you know? And I get to the second point. What is a hero versus what is a martyr? And this was raised loudly by the Martyrs Foundation, that not everybody who died on October 19th is a national hero. Fedor didn't die on October 19th. Marshall was not October 19th. So the issue that we can have a discussion without appearing to be angry at each other, let us sit. You know, my good friend, Mr. Speaker, can I circulate two documents? One is an article by a friend, Ali Salimbi Gill, on Heroes Day, a national conundrum, and an article, a statement made by the Martyrs Foundation, because I would be quoting from it and the procedures that I should circulate the document. I have for that side and I have for yourself. And
Go ahead.
if I may. And here, you need two more. And these articles indicate what was said earlier, that we need to have national discussion on these issues. Mr. Speaker, after the first announcement in 2023, there was a whole discussion. Articles written, Martyrs Foundation. You know, let's pay tribute to people like Dr. Terry Marshall, who spent years, and the families and Martyrs Foundation, years asking for this to be done. Isn't it only natural that their views should be considered? Now, let us look at what my friend Mr. Gill indicated. And there are a couple of things he said that are quite relevant. There was no national discussion on the issue. There should have been community engagements linking National Heroes Day to a very political and partisan moment in our history, a point made earlier. National heroes come from all levels of our society. Those are the kinds of issues that we must interrogate. For example, is Kirani James a national hero? There are people who are going to be advocating that in generations to come. But he had nothing to do with October 19th. October 19th is a solemn day in our history when people were martyred. And that is how it should be treated. I am not here condemning the attempt to celebrate heroes, because every time we express a disagreement, it is met with resistance. And I say to my colleagues, my young brothers and sisters, it is good to listen. There are those of us who have been there for decades, and we have experienced the trauma that you are reading about. October 19th is a traumatic day. My brothers and sisters, members of parliament, sorry, Mr. Speaker, for referring to them in brothers and sisters, but I'm tempted sometimes to embrace. Mr. Speaker, look at what the Martyrs Foundation said in their statement, and we can go to them now, because I know time is limited. They indicated to the government that they do not believe two things really come out of it. One, the day. You cannot have the solemnity required in celebrating the martyrdom of the men and women on October 19 that you will have if you're celebrating Kirani James, if you're celebrating Tia Marisho, if you're celebrating persons, Julian Fedon. It is an entirely different kind of celebration. So we need to consider that. But we also need to consider what they said about the location. And these are issues these are the families. If there's anybody in the world who was impacted, it's the families of those who died on October 19. And they said to you in this Article 1, for 41 long years, the families were urging this. 41 years, the families were urging this. Nobody listened. They had it at a particular location. Fort George, that was named at the time Fort Rupert, after Maurice's father, who died in 1973. Mr. Speaker, they urged that the event take place at Fort George, as it is currently named. They were ignored. In the articles, the event was presented to the families. Not my words. I am not making the criticism. I am here speaking on behalf of people like Dr. Marisho and others who are in the Martyrs Foundation. The event was presented to the families as a fait accompli. No input or ideas were ever sought. Their views should be sought and taken into account in a collaborative manner. Their words, not mine. The point is, Mr. Speaker, that this is a dispute not between two political parties here. That is civil society, the families, the people who experience the pain and hurt. They are speaking in this statement, this press release issued by the Martyrs Foundation. And to date, this controversy arose a year ago. A year hence, nothing has happened by way of consultation. So let's talk about the pain of the families. I agree with the member for St. David. And listen, Mr. Speaker, I'm not here condemning October 19th being celebrated. I'm saying that I do not, along with others, believe it should be celebrated as Heroes' Day. Martyrs' Day, some other thing, not Heroes' Day. So do not tell the public that we are against October 19 being a holiday. I attended the first celebration in Queen's Park because it was a good thing in my view to celebrate the lives of those who were martyred on October 19th. So just listen for 1 minute, Mr. Speaker, is all I urge. That is all I am urging. You can do what you wish because you have the House. Mr. Speaker, as I said, we can let these things bring us together, or we can let it tear us apart. I recall 2009, 2010, I think it was. As Minister for Civil Aviation, I had the honor, and I call it that, to be the minister responsible for civil aviation and therefore with the responsibility for the renaming of the airport. When the announcement was made, I think that contributed to me losing my job. But I faced the controversy head on. Friends of mine called and said, "But Peter, sure you want to do that?" I said, "If not now, when?" We proceeded, And the airport was renamed. In the initial stages, there was controversy. There was one journalist who said he will never land on the airport, he'll take boat. My good friend, he's not around anymore. But we proceeded. And you know what happened eventually? The day the airport was renamed was one of the most unifying actions since 1983. People from all parties, people from all walks of life, because people were celebrating the life of Maurice, even people who did not support Maurice. The point I'm making, brothers and sisters, Mr. Speaker, sorry, members on the other side, the point I'm making is we can use these events, these issues, to bring us together, or we can use it to continue to tear us apart. We, on the other side, represent a large percentage of people. And I'm saying this to members on the other side. Celebrating Heroes Day is an excellent initiative. Recognizing the people we see as heroes as a people is something we need to do because it is through our heroes. You read the article by my friend Salimbi Ali Gill, you will see him paying tribute to those. But at the same time, we must come together to determine who, what, where, and how. Because if we are celebrating heroes, it's not heroes of the NDC, or heroes of the NNP, or heroes of the GOLP, or heroes of the PLM. They are heroes of our nation who we here represent as one people, indivisible under God. So let us not display any tinge of divisiveness or arrogance or I know it all, you wrong and I right. There may be things that I believe that you do not agree with. That is fine. But there are things we all agree on. We all agree that we all have heroes. We all agree that they must be paid tribute to and we must celebrate their lives. And we all agree that we must do it in a way that brings our people together. So every 5 years or every 10 years, we name a new national hero. A national hero is not somebody you just name. You wake up one morning and say, boy, you know what? I like Virgin Andy, you know, and he's a hero. No. We must find the criteria for determining what a national hero is. Maybe one day my brother Andy will be a hero to future generations. But for now, not yet. But we must agree on the process. So I say to my brothers on the other side, if you don't want to listen to me, listen to our intellectuals who are writing on the issue, like Mr. Gill, etc. Listen to the Martyrs Foundation and the families who are impacted by what took place in October 19th. Listen to them. I am merely here, you have the articles, you have all the information. I am merely here to say to you that persons who have been fighting this struggle for 41 years, persons who have lost their mothers, father, brothers, sisters on October 19th, they must have a say in how October 19th is celebrated. And we as a people who have a long heroic history must have a part to play in who we tell our children are our heroes as a people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable MP for the Tongue of St. George. I now give the floor to Honorable MP for St. George Northeast.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the bill as presented by the Leader of Government Business. I did not intend to say anything much on the bill, but really, after listening, I honestly want to add some clarity of understanding. I think the members who spoke on the other side, they mean well in terms of the contribution towards the specific date of October 19th. But I think they are confusing the issue of naming heroes and some perceived barrier that the government of Grenada or the people are not going to get an opportunity to decide who the heroes are. We have not named any heroes. This is clear. It was clearly spelled out. The Honorable Prime Minister provided a context as to the specific day. The day simply signifies that the highest order someone can give, just explained it, is sacrificing their lives. And that day is going to be celebrated as Heroes Day. But I want to make this point, Mr. Speaker, because the door is not closed. The information circulated by the Member of Parliament for Tongue of St. George, Mr. Speaker, through you, it is timely. Nobody is ignoring that information, and people would have alternative views. The thing is, what we are saying is, for 40-something years, this day has been kept in the dark. This is just year 2. We in the government believe that we can listen to people, but we are saying simply this. When it comes to acknowledging this specific day, there is always this kind of cloud of secrecy. This is something we have to stop. Yes, we read about it, some of us. We were not there. But this is something that we have to stop. We are not, and note well, I think we need to understand the context. What do we do with heroes? Do we acknowledge? Do we celebrate? Are heroes only in one context or one-dimensional? Heroes comes in different shapes and sizes, and therefore we need a day that signifies that ultimate sacrifice of Grenadian heroism. We are not saying, Mr. Speaker, that this day is perfect. In fact, no day may be perfect. Because when you consider everything else being equal, you will always find some alternative to say, well, maybe it should be on this day. What we are saying is, Mr. Speaker, acknowledging the day of October 19 is a start. The government has not named any heroes as yet, because this is something that is going to be done by the people, and it will be done by the people. But you see, the other members, Mr. Speaker, on the other side, and through you, is taking the tone as if they want to put the cat before the horse. Because you can't name a hero before you have the day. That's one. And no, because there's a structure, there's a structure to be able to roll out that in a progressive manner. And I'm not going to be distracted, because I think he who had the most opportunities and did absolutely nothing, should not be the first to get up, should encourage that it is a start, but let us work towards something better. So when we talk, Mr. Speaker, about National Heroes Day, the significance of the day is important as well. No one else sitting in this chamber can name any other significant day, because we heard 2 members spoke on the other side thus far. They have not presented an alternative day. What they have said is, don't put it on that day because pain, hurt, etc., trauma, which they did absolutely nothing to heal. So what we are saying is, Mr. Speaker, present the alternative day. Let us hear what it is, and the government certainly is a government that listens. But there is no alternative day. And what would happen, you would find, just like the usual previous style, you leave it, nothing gets done, nobody names any heroes, and we go on about our merry lives. And we can't continue to run the country like that. And so this is not to take away from any pain or hurt. And Mr. Speaker, I could speak about it as well, because the revolution, as much as it was good for my father, he was severely beaten by some of the same guys who assisted in the execution of Morris. He single-handedly went and freed Morris in his house and was beaten severely for it, almost died, was saved after by the Americans. So I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, let's not go down the road of putting this kind of barrier against the day. It is trauma, it is a trauma day, trauma-filled day for many people. However, let us accept the fact that what we need to do is to bring people together. And if the day in 1983 was a day that divided, in 2024 and beyond, we should try to use it as a day to unite. That could help heal and fix. That could help heal and fix. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable MP for St. George Northeast. Honorable MP for St. Andrew Northeast. The floor is now yours.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to make my contribution on this bill and, of course, to state why I cannot support the day October 19th as being renamed National Heroes Day. Mr. Speaker, I'm hearing contributions and I'm wondering if there is a deliberate attempt to communicate the intentions of the bill here, a deliberate attempt to give a misleading intention, because we are saying giving recognition to October 19th is a non-issue. That we have no issue with that. However, to call that date National Heroes Day is where the problem lies. When we think about the day October 19th, people remember it as a day of national tragedy. When we speak about heroism, we speak about an event, or we speak about people that has to be celebrated. Can we celebrate people on a day where you had a total massacre? These are the questions we have to ask ourselves. I've heard the day should be used to unite people, but this day creates more division of our people than any other day. For some, Maurice Bishop was a hero based on his achievements. But to others, he was a dictator because he took away freedom from people. And as a result of that, how can we link the two things together? Heroism, together with a day of national tragedy. Of course, we have no problem. The day should be recognized. To announce it as a national holiday is still to be questioned. But to call it Heroes Day, we know for sure is a total no-no. And if only this one time the government can listen to its people, they will not make that mistake. We have to understand that this day means different things for different people. I've heard we have not suggested a day. Well, in our minds, no one will dispute the fact that the achievements of Dr. Kirani James could be recognized. He could be recognized as one of our heroes. What about that day he won his first Olympic gold medal? That's a day of jubilee, of celebration. It can be considered. But October 19th, to celebrate our people, I cannot support this, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable MP for St. Andrew Northeast. I now invite the Leader of His Majesty Opposition to make his contribution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first of all, maybe the intention of the motion presented here, of this bill, sorry, maybe that's necessary, maybe, so. But the fact is, this has in fact brought up a lot of issues. And therefore I want to stand on the presentation of the member for St. Andrews Southeast and the member, clearly the member of the tongue. Some people can't even speak for themselves, but they speak for others. When they speak, Mr. Speaker, I wish they would speak well for themselves in terms of trying to speak for people who may have the experience of speaking for themselves, historically so. So, so I stand, Mr. Speaker, on the very worthwhile contribution of the member for St. Andrews Southeast and the member for the town of St. George. Mr. Speaker, first of all, let me just comment on the fact that the initiative of looking at the Carnival holiday may be also a good one to look at it. But as I was trying to get the attention of the leader of government business, because in his presentation he talked about Tuesday. That's what I think I heard. If I heard wrong, then so be it. But the member of St. David's, when he was speaking, talked about Monday. Because I know Monday is always considered literally a holiday. Tuesday, that's usually, we almost call it a half day, a half holiday, so to speak. So I think there needs to be some clarity there. Yeah, I think it's important to do so. But I see no problem trying to address this because it is right when it is pointed out that historically we have always looked for a proclamation of the Governor General. So clarifying this may not necessarily be a bad thing. So I have no major issue with this. But, Mr. Speaker, the harsh reality is, as members already pointed out, Heroes Day is a necessary initiative. But the problem is, as many as others have pointed out, the necessity for bringing people together and having serious consultation with the population in a non-partisan way is crucial for an issue of this nature. It is not for one side of the House of Parliament to decide on a particular issue of this nature. It's the country. It's a national holiday. So there needs to be some serious consultation with the population as a whole. Now, Mr. Speaker, you know, some people would have read about October 19th. A few of us have lived it. And I think that's a fundamental difference. Reading something, in fact, some of them, their fathers would know about it. But some of them may have read about it. So to imply that no serious thought was given about this over the years is fundamentally false. I remember the first period of sitting in cabinet of the country in 1984. There were lengthy discussions and differences of opinion expressed of how we treat October 19th. And in the country as a whole, I can speak to this and I'm reading about it. I speak to it because I was right there. October 19th, while there wasn't an announcement of the solemnity of the day, it was a solemn day throughout the country. If you drove around Grenada on October 19th for the first several years, you would have noticed this. In many churches, not just one religion, different religious organizations, there were services all parts of the country. Because people, this was fresh. People are still mourning the loss of good friends. Good friends. I would always remember Eunice Whiteman was a very good friend of mine. We were teaching at Presentation College together. And I know he was a good man, very good intention, and so on. So every time that day comes, it's a solemn one for me. Besides the loss of friends and family members, but he represented something because I know he had a good heart as a person. So to say that nothing was done, and you know, it's sad. I wish the member of St. David's was in the House, because I really think, especially in his position as our Prime Minister, I think the member for St. Andrews South was expressing a concern, and he seemed to have taken this in a negative way. She wasn't talking, Mr. Speaker, and criticizing the government. She was talking about how she felt. And he's almost saying she had no reason to express how she felt. How could you tell someone that? How could you tell someone as if the person is playing games? The member is expressing herself about that event. And that was the response. I think it's sad. It is sad. And even words like she's playing to be sanctimonious and playing she's an advocate of the tragedy of that time and what had she done. He would not have even known if she had done anything. He couldn't even ask, Mr. Speaker. You know, the problem I have is fundamentally about the government. This government has never consulted anybody, period. The members of the opposition who's been in government for several years, who have done a number of major initiatives, not just one of us, many members. You would have thought an issue of that nature, at least a consultation, a meeting of the minds. There are other issues, but I can't tell people who to consult and who to talk to, because when I called to just express my congratulations, I was told in a national event, I want you to know, he called me and I didn't call him. So that alone started off to me making a call to that number again at all. And I never get one since 2.5 years, after almost 40 years in the parliament of the country. But that's, everyone has a choice. That's one's choice. And you can't force anyone to have a relationship or to consult or to want to be. Maybe they're not used to this. Maybe that's not their DNA. It's in their DNA. All of us have our own DNA. It's very unique. So I can't force anybody to be like me. And I cannot force myself to be like somebody else, because it won't come out. It won't come out well, because I can't be anybody but me. But at least there's some fundamental principles of human relation where we consult and talk to each other. Mr. Speaker, I don't see how I could support October 19th as Heroes Day. To me, you're putting the cart before the horse. That is my view. As if, I know for some people, we're not supposed to have views. Yeah, that's my view. That might not be your view, but I can only have mine. And it's good to have other views, and that's okay. So, Mr. Speaker, criticizing and making this thing almost like a political thing. I didn't think this was a political initiative at all. That's why I said I have no difficulty with initiative. But when I hear that criticizing the NNP for not recognizing that day, which is totally not true. It doesn't mean that the only time you recognize a day is that you have a holiday. Is that only way you could recognize and show some empathy for a particular event? I pointed out already how many church services and activities occurred on that solemn day. The issue of a holiday came up, but there was great division. There was not a unanimous. And around the country, we tested it with several groups and persons in the society, and there was mixed results. I don't know, maybe the government has in fact done that, and if it did it and found out it was necessary and supportive, the people supported, then okay, I don't have a problem. And I'm not going to criticize, I don't know whether the government did. But to imply that it was not considered, it's so clearly false and not necessarily the kind of approach. Mr. Speaker, I heard it said, October 19 represents a heroic day, because some people made as if people made a decision to be executed on a particular day, as if they made a decision knowing that they were going to be executed, and it's like many of the saints of the past, they tell us, face execution and knew what they were going to face and went up voluntarily and so on. I don't think anyone in October 19 wanted to be killed and wanted Grande to be killed. I heard comments of people who were in the room when the armored cars start knocking down buildings and doors. And they were there with the leaders. And everybody was traumatized, including the leader. Nobody wanted to die. So they say persons were heroic on that day. And that is coming from someone who was just born at the time. It's clearly not someone who lived through an experience. Someone who read in a book or got a story told to them. But please talk to others who are around, who may have a different view and would understand what took place. Mr. Speaker, it is sad. It is sad that we have to be literal countering expressions that took place here today on that bill. We should not have to do this, because that means the things should not have been said, so we should not have to counter it. Take, for example, about the U.S. aid and what didn't we ask about the bodies and so on. Mr. Speaker, let me say this, and the first time I will be saying it here, because it was raised. As Prime Minister of this country, it's well known, I had a very good relationship with the President of the United States, George Bush. That's history. Probably one of the few prime ministers in the region that went to the White House at least 5 times during his tenure, discussing major issues. And that issue came up in one of those sessions. A session with former Prime Minister of Australia was also the 3 of us at the White House, John Howard. And I raised that issue to the President. And I know instructions were given. And I met with several officials of the government, State Department, and the Army, men who were in Grenada at the time. And all was saying the same. And I reported back to the cabinet discussions that took place. And they disavow anything, knowledge of where the bodies were. They did. Whether you can say they're telling the truth or not, that is what happened. But we, in other words, at the highest level, we took it to the highest level. For someone reading a book and hearing someone telling a tale on the side and coming in the parliament and talking about it loosely is unfortunate. So I had to say it here today. I have never said that in the parliament. But because we are being accused. So we went at lengths, Mr. Speaker, to deal with this funding because it's a painful period. This is not something anyone wants to enjoy talking about here this morning. We can't enjoy this. The fact is, October 19 brings in a lot of painful memories to people who were wronged at that time and others, Mr. Speaker, yes, and others who may have been told the right stories. So I just want to, in closing, Mr. Speaker, I hope the next time we speak about this important event, October 19th, it does not have to be a holiday to be accepted. You don't have to name a holiday to treat a particular day. In fact, you could call it a day of reflection and ask for people to have specific events on that particular day, not necessarily going on holiday. If it has to be, then so be it. And I don't believe, as was rightly said by almost every member on this side who spoke, we have no difficulty with it. But it doesn't have to be for us to be able to reflect this, the event, to our children and grandchildren's future of this country, Mr. Speaker. So I just want to say, Mr. Speaker, on that note, because of the issues raised by members on this side, I cannot, on my own feelings on this, I cannot in conscience support October 19th as a holiday and call it National Heroes Day. Finally, Mr. Speaker, just 1 second. I heard the member, St. David, said...
Honorable member.
Just 1 second.
I gave you time after the bell went.
Just 1 second,
Go
second,
ahead.
not long. Mr. Speaker, I heard it said that we have several heroes in families who are heroes and so on. I believe, therefore, it's important if the government can engage the nation about what is meant of this hero and what criteria is set out. I think I'm a member for Tom of St. George mentioned this, set out for Heroes Day. It's not a controversial thing, so that we all on the same wavelength as far as that important issue is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Leader of His Majesty Opposition. Is the light still on, Honorable? All right, I now invite the MP for St. Mark to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise just to add my concerns to those expressed by the members on this side. I want to make it abundantly clear that I respect and I believe that some honor is due, or recognition or commemoration or however it's said, for that day is due to Grenada, to Grenadians, or however we put it, is due on that day to recognize the events that took place and come up with some things that would appropriately reflect our feelings, our decisions, whatever, on the matter. But I concur with my colleagues that the designation of Heroes Day is problematic for me, as well as for other persons, and we are not just here to represent our personal feelings, but we, since receiving the notice, did take some time to do some research, to ask, to consult in a small way. And I believe that the government is well placed to do a more comprehensive and detailed consultation. And I think this is one of the things that we find, and I find often lacking, the desire or the interest to consult the people whose lives have been affected or will be affected by any decision that the government takes. And I want to beg that they review the decision. Mr. Speaker, I too am concerned about how we're going to deal with the definition of hero, the criteria for heroes, and how we're going to deal with the varying backgrounds of people who are heroes. Some, they did things that, although very commendable, were sad. Some would have done things commendable and joyful. So how do you mix these two? And I think this is one of the things that our government of the day, our Prime Minister as leader, need to look at so that it becomes more meaningful and applicable to the situation. And I do not think that will take away if there was a different decision on the name of the day. I do not think it will take away on the sentiment of that day. But if it is ignored, if the consultation of people is ignored, I think that would be a Saturday for us. And I've been wondering since I saw it, how, and it was said by a member for St. Andrew Southeast, people like Kirani James, people like Junior Murray, persons like, from St. Mark, for example, Austin George, great footballer, great cricketer. A young gentleman called Nyron Belfon from St. Mark, who did extremely well in cricket and so on, and in every parish around the country. I just mentioned them. And I wonder how we're going to be honoring them on Heroes Day. If people like them, it doesn't have to be them, but how are you going to juggle that to honor these people who have excelled and whose pursuits and whose achievements are joyful in nature, with another recognition of persons whose demise came in an untimely and very painful way. So it's not to criticize what the government is saying. As a matter of fact, I want to compliment the government side for looking at a holiday, looking at some way to do that. But I also want to say that to imply that nothing has been done is very sad. Now, if one was to look up my name in Wikipedia, they would not see what I did. But I did too. I myself, even when we were planning for the work on the fort, the restoration, which one of the members would have got unstuck from the pipeline. But when we were planning and discussing, one of the important things to us was to archive, to save, to salvage any documents there. And under my tenure, that was done, where we have an archive to archive all of the documents that were there and to get persons to restore what could have been saved. I even wrote to the U.S. Embassy to ask for support in getting documents, and documentation of what has happened in our country is very important. So yes, this government has made a move, and it's commendable. But there's nothing wrong for our side to say that, you know, maybe we should revisit the name, or revisit or do a consultation, the manner in which it was done, the process. And I want to beg the other side to please take a little time off to review what the documents have been shared by the member for the town, and whatever other comments that may be of value, to give it that kind of consideration. So when we do come up with it, we wouldn't have a paucity of attendance for the 19th, but people will be able to identify with it and to attend in a more meaningful way than I have seen happening in the past 2 years. And I look forward to it. I look forward to an event that all of us as a nation can go to and be united, and I will certainly, God willing, be there when that does happen. I thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much, Honorable MP for St. Mark. I see the light of the MP for St. Patrick East. I now invite the Honorable Dennis Cornwall to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning to every member of Parliament. I stand to lend my support to the Bank Holiday Amendment Bill 2024. And although the discussions here this morning has been around October 19, 1983, I can't basically say that I have the same experience that most of you have expressed here in the House, because in 1983, I was a student of economics in the Republic of Cuba, and though my experience as a student then is vastly different to most of you who were living in Grenada, I must say that I believe that most of us, or even almost every Grenadian, had some sort of experience or impact from the 1983 events here in Grenada. Notwithstanding that, I believe one has to also remember that a Prime Minister and members of his cabinet were shot down or executed on that particular day, and today we still have that one wide open and so on. We're talking about, we don't know where the bodies are, we're talking about whether or not we should basically have the day recognized as a holiday in Grenada and how we should be. I don't believe, and I don't stand behind the idea that every holiday that we basically announce in Grenada should be a jam and wine kind of thing. And I think the moment is such that it requires that that day be a very solemn day, and I fully support all the activities that we have actually announced that these days should carry with it. I know amplified music. People should be forward to basically go into the church and to basically be expressing the solemn situation. And so I fully support and stand behind the idea that October 19 be a holiday as announced and be recognized as is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable MP for St. Patrick East. And I now invite the MP for South St. George to take the floor.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Good morning to everyone. Mr. Speaker, I just sat there taking in everything about the holiday, or the proposed holiday, October 19th. And Mr. Speaker, it's been an interesting one in terms of listening to both sides, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, National Heroes Day, I think we tend to go with the flow, we tend to debate back and forth, Mr. Speaker, but, you know, what about doing research on National Heroes Day throughout the world? And Mr. Speaker, while sitting there, I just did some research, and I just want to share it with the House on National Heroes Day. Mr. Speaker, in the UK, let me just read this. The United Kingdom first celebrated a National Heroes Day in 2011 on the 21st of October, the same day as the victory at Battle of Trafalgar. That's the UK. Mr. Speaker, let's go to Zambia. Heroes Day in Zambia is a public holiday celebrated on the first Monday in July annually. Heroes Day is a memorial day for those who perished during the independence struggles. Mr. Speaker, let's go to Zimbabwe. Heroes Day in Zimbabwe is a public holiday observed on the second Monday of August each year. This is a day to remember those who died during the Liberation War or those who were declared national heroes. Mr. Speaker, so when we go to the back and forth, Mr. Speaker, it is important for us to see the context in which this is done. And Mr. Speaker, know the meaning, and not just oppose for opposing sake, right? Mr. Speaker, it's important to go deep and to do research, especially when you are coming in a house like this, honorable house like this, to debate such things. Number one. Mr. Speaker, number two. Mr. Speaker, these people on the other side had a chance, how much years, Mr. Speaker, to do something like this, to make one single step. What they did? Nothing. Mr. Speaker, what we are doing here today, they had the chance, Mr. Speaker, the leader of the opposition was, Mr. Speaker, in office for maybe 20-something years. Mr. Speaker, he had the chance to do what we are attempting to do today, just over 2 years in office. And Mr. Speaker, it's a shame, Mr. Speaker, to see when you are taking the bold step to take action, to do something, Mr. Speaker, all you are seeing on the other side is the attempt to oppose. And Mr. Speaker, they talk about working together. Mr. Speaker, these people refuse to work with us. Mr. Speaker, you talk about listening. Mr. Speaker, we could go back. And Mr. Speaker, in their reign in government, Mr. Speaker, you had nothing as listening and consultation. So, Mr. Speaker, when they come with this notion that all of a sudden they are in opposition and know they are holy and they know the best and they do the best, Mr. Speaker, what they are saying today is not what they were doing when they were in office. Mr. Speaker, I'm just saying that let us be wise, Mr. Speaker, and also, Mr. Speaker, not just because we are on the government side and you're on the opposition side, Mr. Speaker, I mean everything that we do has to be a back and forth. We will welcome consultation with the opposition if they are willing to consult with us. And Mr. Speaker, when they get up in the House and make it seem like if we are the arrogant one, Mr. Speaker, let the record shows. Because sometimes when time passes, we tend to forget how things were. Mr. Speaker, in this moment in history, it is a time where everyone can get up and speak without any repercussions. Mr. Speaker, in that time, Mr. Speaker, let me just say something. I was scared to even enter into politics. Because I say, Andy, if you enter into politics, the victimization that will come will be so much, you have to run. If you lose, it's a good thing I win. Right? So, Mr. Speaker, sometimes, Mr. Speaker, when you say something over and over, it seems like if it's truth. And Mr. Speaker, they themselves might believe what they are saying. But Mr. Speaker, if they are honest with themselves, Mr. Speaker, they will know. All they have to do is just look back to see when they were in office, the kind of tension they had in the country. Today, Mr. Speaker, everyone can say something without repercussions and without any, backlash whatsoever. So I'm saying, when you look at the research on National Heroes Day, it's not just a holiday to gallivant and to celebrate and to party. All over the world, National Heroes Day means something. And it was always that day when we celebrated the lives of people who stood for this country. Mr. Speaker, and with this, I want to rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, MP for South St. George. I think, all right, that might, you have had a long debate on it, and no other MP seem to be willing to. Do you have government business?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, firstly, I wish to express my appreciation to members, both sides of this honorable House for the debate on this bill. And honestly, Mr. Speaker, I did not envisage that this particular bill would attract so much debate because of its simple nature. This bill, Mr. Speaker, is seeking to get the House's permission to enact the 2 dates as public holidays. And so that is all it's asking. So in the case of October 19th, Mr. Speaker, both years, 2023 and 2024, have been celebrated on October 19th as National Heroes Day. That has been happening for the past 2 years. We are asking this honorable parliament to make this law. That's what we're trying to do. So the question, Mr. Speaker, as to who are our national heroes is not to be discussed here and now. As correctly stated, as per the document circulated this morning, it says, national heroes, it has a question in about the 4th paragraph that it says, are national heroes selected by the people? And of course. But in order to get to this stage, Mr. Speaker, one must first recognize a day on which these recognitions can happen. And so the government that was elected on the 23rd day of June, 23rd day of June, 2022, is asking for this particular date to be recognized. So the question as to who are our national heroes is not a question for this morning's debate. The question as to why is not a matter for today's debate. And the question as to how these people, potential heroes, how they're to be recognized is not a matter for today's debate. And so, Mr. Speaker, this is where we start. We start by acknowledging, first and foremost, the fact that a particular time in history has to be set aside for such an activity. The very first line in the said, right by Ali Gill, says, a nation should designate time to celebrate its history and to commemorate its heroes. And that is what we're seeking to do. He said, I believe honoring our heroes represent the very soul of our nation. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, it is even more pivotal and important that we designate a particular day. The government has debated this in the halls of its cabinet. And, Mr. Speaker, I can assure you that had June 23rd, 2022, had it gone the other way, there would have been no difference and no debate on the date. Because Grenada was crying out for a long time, for decades, Mr. Speaker, just for the freedom of expression, just for the freedom to speak, and to speak one conscience. And that is even evident today as we speak, Mr. Speaker. The doors within a certain organization, as we speak, members of that organization are barred from having representation in a convention coming up in a couple of weeks. No freedom, no democracy. Democracy is out the window, Mr. Speaker. And it's a fact. It's a fact. So, Mr. Speaker, we use this opportunity to pretend. Pretend. That's what we're doing here. Playing the game, let's pretend, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, our intention is not to create division and to stir up any ill feelings. Our intentions are pure. Our intention is to recognize our heroes, to identify a date and time in which that can be done. And this will evolve over time, Mr. Speaker. The next generation of Grenadians would be happy that we've made this decision. Because over time, the pain that was so well articulated by the member for St. Andrew Southeast, that pain will ease over time. The complexity of the Grenadian society will evolve over time. And over time, those who read our history will ask the question, what really all this fuss was about? At some point in time, those questions would be asked. So, Mr. Speaker, they talk consultation. No consultation. No national discussion. You see, Mr. Speaker, they're on the other side of the aisle. The shoe is in the other foot. So they're asking about consultation. But I want to say to this Honorable House, when it comes to the selection of our national heroes, there will be consultation. The Grenadian population will get the opportunity to decide who their heroes are. That is what is important. It is not about how well we can pretend. You see, Mr. Speaker, some behave, they ask a question about our knowledge about the past events. You see, they're saying what we experience, Mr. Speaker, is what they read about. You see? What they experience, Mr. Speaker, is what we are reading about. As if to say, we have no authority to discuss the subject. So, Mr. Speaker, there is a rude awakening coming in now because, you see, this government has introduced in our schools our national history. So the youngest child who read our history will now be afforded the opportunity to discuss and debate robustly our history. And they will be able to speak with authority on these subject matters. So it will not be something just for a select few who has the authority on these subjects. But, Mr. Speaker, may I remind this Honorable House that we sit here because of a majority vote. We received the popular votes, Mr. Speaker, on the last elections. So we were sent here by the people. We are here representing the interests of the Grenadian people. So we do have the authority, Mr. Speaker, to speak on these important national issues. So, Mr. Speaker, I just want to touch on the issue of the amplified music. And I want to remind this Honorable House that in Grenada, in order to play amplified music, you must get permission from the police. In other words, on a normal day, the playing of amplified music is forbidden. So the member for St. Andrews Southeast says it's a feeling as if we are in curfew. It's a period of curfew, Mr. Speaker. Well, Mr. Speaker, if that is the case, then it seemed to me that the honorable member might well be living in a perpetual curfew. And one must be, you see, it's all about emotions. It's all about creating a hype around the subject matters so as to really divert attention from the truth. But we must reckon with our history. This is our history. And so, Mr. Speaker, once again want to thank honorable members, both sides of this House, Mr. Speaker, for their contribution to this bill, and are now committed to the Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader of Government Business. Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a second time. Those of that opinion, say aye. Of the contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. I think the ayes have it.
Bill for an act shortly entitled Bank Holidays Amendment Bill 2024.
Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider this bill clause by clause.
Honorable members, the question is that this Honorable House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill clause by clause. All those with that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. This Honorable House is now in committee.
Clause 2, Amendment of Schedule to Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 2 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 1, short title.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 1, short title, forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that the House resumes and the chairman of the committee report progress on the bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the House resumes and that the chairman of the committee reports progress on the bill. Those with that opinion say aye. Those who have that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. This Honorable House now resumes. Honorable members, I have to report that the bill was considered by a committee of the whole House and passed without amendment. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the chairman's report be adopted.
Honorable members, the question is that the chairman's report be adopted. Those who have that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the bill be read a third time.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a third time. Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a third time and pass. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Bank Holidays Amendment Bill 2024.
Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to introduce for its first reading a bill for an act shortly entitled Tax Administration Amendment Bill 2024.
A bill which seeks to amend the Tax Administration Act number 14 of 2016, the Principal Act, to enhance the integrated legislative framework to combat money laundering and terrorism financing, shortly entitled Tax Administration Amendment Bill 2024.
Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the relevant standing order be set aside to enable the bill to go through all the stages at this sitting.
Honorable members, the question is that the relevant standing order of the House be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all stages at this sitting. Those who have that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the second reading of the bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a second time. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this bill seeks to amend the Tax Administration Act number 14 of 2016, which is a Principal Act, to enhance the integrated legislative framework to combat money laundering and terrorist financing. This bill, Mr. Speaker, contains two clauses. Clause 1 treats with the short title, and Clause 2, Mr. Speaker, amends Section 27 to enhance the powers of investigation of the Office of the Comptroller of Customs. Mr. Speaker, Section 27 of the Principal Act is amended by inserting subsection 8 to include the following new sections: Section 8A and Section 8B. 8A, Mr. Speaker, treats with the authorized officer who, Mr. Speaker, having reasonable grounds for suspecting that information provided to the Comptroller of Customs may either be incomplete or inaccurate, and that where, Mr. Speaker, a person who are in possession, person or entity, Mr. Speaker, possession of such information may now have the authority to review, to enter the premises, and to get all of the information pertaining to that, to those records. And so they will now be able to review all books, records, documents, which is relevant to any investigation that the Comptroller would so undertake. The authorized officer, Mr. Speaker, may then serve written notice on such person, requiring them to provide the information. So, Mr. Speaker, the Comptroller serves a written notice requesting the information, and the information, when received, Mr. Speaker, may then be copied and kept for his purpose, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, this is very important, Mr. Speaker, because we are aware that many complaints has been leveled against different people regarding the correctness, the accuracy, the completeness of information being given to the Comptroller of Customs. And so, Mr. Speaker, this now empowers the Comptroller to carry out such investigations and receive all pertinent information surrounding any investigation. Section BA, Mr. Speaker, any notice served under Section A require the person upon whom is served in relation to the investigation to produce the information and to make any such information available and to answer questions relating to the particular infringement or potential infringement. And so, Mr. Speaker, this is important because it is a very important element within the set of legislations that treat with terrorist financing and money laundering. And, Mr. Speaker, in order for Grenada to get proper ratings from the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force and other international bodies, it is important that these amendments to the legislations be made so that Grenada stands in compliance with the legislations. And so, Mr. Speaker, this particular amendment to this act really covers part of the areas in which Grenada was seen to be non-compliant. And so, Mr. Speaker, I submit this to the House for its consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader of Government Business. Leader of His Majesty Opposition.
Yeah, okay, because, I mean, nobody else. I was just walking in, so I want to make sure it's okay.
He just presented the motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, just one point, Mr. Speaker. In the preamble to the act, the discussion before the essence of the act, you had control of customs. This would be control of inland revenue. There was it's a tax. So it should be, if the tax is inland revenue, collect tax, the activities in the government service. So I noted that. Is that a tax matter, right? Is that tax amendment administration bill? Yeah, that should. Yeah, that would be inland revenue, I think, yeah. I believe it's inland revenue. Yeah, you want to check it by there? Just check it, okay? I just noted it. So if in case it.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other contribution? They're checking it out. Do we have the adjustment? Or? Okay. Leader of Government Business.
All right, Mr. Speaker, thank you. Mr. Speaker, this actually the leader of the opposition is correct in that the bill itself makes reference to the inland revenue, but the briefing notes had it incorrectly as customs.
Okay.
I think that's where yeah. Because having checked the act, we recognize that that's the case. So there is no need for any amendment or change because the bill in itself is accurate.
Oh, okay.
It's just the notes itself
Okay.
that had a little error in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Close debate. I see no other member wish to contribute. I call on the Leader of Government Business. I call on the Leader of Government Business to close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, again, I receive and accept the recommendation by the Leader of His Majesty Opposition, and we thank you for your observation. And I now commit this bill to the House. Thank you.
Honourable members, the question is that the bill be read a second time. All those with that opinion, say aye. Of the contrary opinion, say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Tax Administration Amendment Bill 2024.
Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider this bill clause by clause. Thank you.
Honorable members, the question is that this Honorable House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill clause by clause. Those who have that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. This Honorable House is now in committee.
Clause 2, amendment of Section 27 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 2 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 1, short title.
Honorable members, the question is, Clause 1, short title, forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that the House resumes and that the Chairman report be, and the Chairman reports progress on the bill. Thanks.
Honorable members, the question is that the House resumes and the Chairman of the committee reports progress on the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. This Honorable House now resumes. I have to report that the bill was considered by a committee of the whole House and passed without amendment. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the Chairman's report be adopted.
Honorable members, the question is that the Chairman's report be adopted. Those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the third reading of the bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a third time. Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a third time and pass. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled the Tax Administration Amendment Bill 2024.
Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to introduce for its first reading a bill for an act shortly entitled Terrorism Amendment Bill 2024.
A bill which seeks to amend the Terrorism Act, number 16 of 2012, the Principal Act, to enhance the integrated legislative framework to combat money laundering and terrorism financing, shortly entitled Terrorism Amendment Bill 2024.
Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the relevant standing order be suspended to allow this bill to be taken through all its stages at this sitting. Thank you.
Honorable members, the question is that the relevant standing order of the House be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all stages at this sitting. Those who have that opinion, say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the second reading of the bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a second time. Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, like the previous bill, this one is also geared to enhance the integrated legislative framework to combat money laundering and terrorist financing. This particular bill, Mr. Speaker, seeks to amend the Terrorism Act number 16 of 2012 and contains 12 clauses. Clause 1, Mr. Speaker, treats with the short title of the bill. Clause 2 provides for the amendment of Section 2 to insert 3 new definitions, including designated entity, funds or other assets, and regulated entity. It also seeks to revise 2 definitions. Definitions for a listed entity and the definition for terrorism. Mr. Speaker, this particular clause seeks to amend Section 2 to insert these definitions. To contemplate acts against international organizations and involves the use of firearms, explosives, chemicals, biological or nuclear weapons, or any other weapon or means of mass destruction. This, Mr. Speaker, is seeking to broaden the net to capture all potential involvement in these acts of violence. Terrorism, Mr. Speaker, is something that we have become aware of most vividly in the last couple decades. And this, Mr. Speaker, is usually designed to influence governments or to intimidate public or sections of the public or any other territory or country or any international organization And so, Mr. Speaker, this world, as we know it, has changed. We live in a global village where the transfer of assets, including financial assets and resources, to aid in these undesirable activities is more easily facilitated because of the advent of social media, money transfer services, electronic banking, and other means that facilitates the payment for these kinds of services. And so, Mr. Speaker, as a global village, Grenada is not exempted. Small as we are, peaceful as we are called upon to prepare and to arm ourselves, figuratively so, against these potential acts of violence. And so terrorism, Mr. Speaker, because we are part of a global village, we must take it seriously. And Grenada, as I mentioned earlier, has been monitored by the international community and more closely by the FATF, who rates our performance as it relates to our compliance with these struggles against money laundering and terrorist financing. Terrorists, Mr. Speaker, sometimes utilize innocent people, not even being aware of the acts that they are being lured into committing, sometimes as transporters of assets, sometimes as conveyor of information. And so, Mr. Speaker, as a small island state, we understand our vulnerability, and so we must comply with the provisions that enable us to strengthen our borders and to protect against these intruders who will try to penetrate our borders by way of social media and luring our young people and people in general into assisting in committing acts of terrorism. And so, Mr. Speaker, Clause 3 provides for the repeal and replacement of Section 3A to improve the provisions for identifying terrorist organizations. Broadening the net, Mr. Speaker, because it is very important, Mr. Speaker, that the legislation be strengthened, that we become more knowledgeable of what is outside there and prepare ourselves for the eventualities. Clause 4, Mr. Speaker, provides for the amendment of Section 5 to expand the prohibition against biological toxins and weapons to include prohibition against the use of biological toxins and weapons. Currently, Mr. Speaker, the conduct prohibited is against developing, producing, stockpiling, acquiring, or retaining biological toxins and weapons. It never included the actual use of these toxins and weapons. And so the definition, Mr. Speaker, is strengthened, or the clause, Mr. Speaker, is strengthened to include the actual use of these biological toxins and weapons. Clause 5, Mr. Speaker, provides for the amendment of Section 6 to expand the prohibition against causing a nuclear weapon explosion. Clause 6(1)(a) currently creates an offense for knowingly causing a nuclear weapon explosion. And Clause 5 seeks to substitute the following new offenses: causing a weapon explosion either knowingly or having reasonable cause to suspect that the nuclear weapon explosion could occur. So, Mr. Speaker, this bill, Mr. Speaker, is providing a wider catchment for anyone having involvement in these types of activities, thereby strengthening our ability to respond, to catch, to detect any of these activities happening. And Mr. Speaker, later on you'd see in Clause 6 how we interact with the international community in this fight against terrorism and money laundering. The world, Mr. Speaker, has changed immensely. It could be a very nice place to live and to coexist, but it can also be a very dangerous place, because there are always criminal elements who are looking for loopholes in legislations, who are looking to penetrate the unsuspecting, who are monitoring the vulnerable and seeing how they can use them to get for their own advantage of committing these types of crimes. So Clause 6, Mr. Speaker, Clause 6 provides for the repeal of Section 14A, 14AB, and 14B, and the replacement with new sections, Section 14A to 14G. These provisions, Mr. Speaker, relate to the procedure for listing an entity, identifying and listing those entities as an entity believed to be involved in terrorist activity, and the special monitoring powers of the state of Grenada in collaboration with monitoring requirements imposed on regulated entities. Businesses likely to be utilized also by these listed entities. So, Mr. Speaker, there are some new features that were added that helps us to identify these listed entities. Because, Mr. Speaker, with the previous definition, it is not because of the change in the way these terrorist organizations finance these activities. Because of how they have changed, it is even more critical now that the definition be expanded and that the listed entities be now widened. So here are some of the new features for these listed entities. One, expanding the monitoring requirement that apply to these listed entities, creating an offense for regulated entities who fail to apply the requirements, and establishing a process for the Attorney General to remove an entity from listing where there is no longer reason to believe that the entity is involved in terrorism. So this feature, Mr. Speaker, now gives the Attorney General that authority to now remove an entity who are no longer involved in that. So you can add or remove from the list. New feature number 2, Mr. Speaker, by virtue of this section 14E, it now empowers the Attorney General to notify the United Nations Security Council of the names of entities that Grenada has listed as part of its, as Grenada has listed, to facilitate global supervision of the entity. So, Mr. Speaker, this feature provides for that networking and sharing of information across this space so that our sister countries, Mr. Speaker, would be always abreast with who these new entities are. Because, Mr. Speaker, they change their names. The names evolve. They change their principles. And so we always, Mr. Speaker, have to be one step ahead. And that's why feature 1, as identified a little earlier, is also important, because as those names change and become no more relevant, we can now remove, but now include those new names that these terrorist people would change to, the new entities. Feature 3, Mr. Speaker, by virtue of new section 14F, empowers the Attorney General to receive notification from another state that that other state has listed a particular entity on its own list to facilitate Grenada's contribution to the global supervision of these entities. So, Mr. Speaker, across the board, there is the sharing of information on both sides. And that, too, is important, so as to create the connectivity in this fight against money laundering and terrorist financing. New feature 4, Mr. Speaker. By virtue of the new section 14G, it creates an offense to capture foreign. It's an offense, Mr. Speaker. Let me take this again. 14G, Mr. Speaker, creates an offense for foreign terrorist fighters. So foreign terrorist fighters, a person who knowingly and without lawful excuse travels for the purpose of planning, committing, supporting, or facilitating the commission of and the act of terrorism will now be liable, Mr. Speaker, to a fine of some $500,000 or 20 years in prison. So, Mr. Speaker, this feature now imposes a fine and imprisonment when one of these terrorist fighters are captured, fine in the sum of $500,000 or 20 years in prison. Clause 7, Mr. Speaker, provides for the amendment of Section 22A by inserting a new subsection 3A to expressly capture as prohibited conduct the financing of travels for training or preparation and financing, whether from legitimate or illegitimate sources. So any type of financing, illegitimate or legitimate, as long as it is used for that particular purpose, creates an offense. Clause 8, Mr. Speaker. Clause 8 provides for the amendment of Section 27 to increase the penalties for contravention of Section 19 to 22 on summary conviction under paragraph A from $40,000 to a fine of $1 million. And conviction on indictment under paragraph B from $1 million to now $10 million. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, a minimum penalty of $1 million is being introduced under paragraph B for a conviction of indictment. Currently, Mr. Speaker, Section 27 provides for a person who commits an offense under Section 19 to 22 is liable to pay a fine not exceeding $400,000. But under this new section, Mr. Speaker, it is now moved to $1 million. On conviction of indictment, to a fine not less than $1 million or not more than $10 million, or imprisonment of 30 years or both. So, Mr. Speaker, this particular section dealing with the fines, you recognize the fines have significantly increased, both imprisonment and monetary fines. And so, Mr. Speaker, this underscores the serious nature of these activities and the fact that our compliance, changing of our legislation to reflect what is obtained regionally and internationally, brings us in alignment with what is obtained. So, Mr. Speaker, Clause 9 provides for the amendment of Section 27A to mandate the Director of Public Prosecution to examine the appropriateness of freezing orders periodically and to apply for revocation of freezing orders where appropriate. Clause 10, Mr. Speaker, provides for the amendment of the 5th schedule to remove the contents of Part 1A to be repositioned into the new 7th and 8th schedule. And Clause 11, Mr. Speaker, provides for the insertion of the new 7th schedule and the new 8th schedule. So, Mr. Speaker, in summary, this is what we are seeking to do. To broaden the net and to come into broaden the net in respect of all activities that relate to terrorist financing and money laundering, and to come into alignment with what is obtained regionally and internationally. I now commend this bill to the House for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader of Government Business. Now the floor is now open for other contributions. There seem to be no other contribution. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, this is, this particular bill is straightforward in one sense. And the fact that we are just responding mainly to what is obtained regionally and internationally, I could understand why there is really no reason for debate. And I think what we're trying to do here is to, on one hand, protect our country. Well, as a matter of fact, in many respects, protecting our country. So I just want to thank honorable members for their support on this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Leader of Government Business. Honorable members, the question is that the bill is read a second time. All those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Tourism Amendment Bill 2024.
Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider this bill clause by clause.
Honorable members, the question is that this Honorable House resolved itself into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill clause by clause. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. This Honorable House is now in committee.
Clause 2, amendment of Section 2 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 2 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 3, repeal and substitution of Section 3A of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 3 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it.
Clause 4, amendment of Section 5 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 4 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 5, amendment of Section 6 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 5 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. Indeed, the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Clause 6, repeal of Sections 14A to 14C of Principal Act and substitution with Sections 14A to 14G.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 6 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 7, amendment of Section 22A of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 7 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 8, amendment of Section 27 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 8 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 9, amendment of Section 27A of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 9 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it.
Clause,
Abstain.
Clause 9, amendment of Section 27A of Principal Act.
You read this. Clause 10. Clause 10. You read 9 already. You read 9 already.
Clause 10, amendment of 5th Schedule to Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that clause 10 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 11, insertion of new 7th and 8th schedules to Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that clause 11 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 1, short title.
Honorable members, the question is that clause 1, short title, forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Bill of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I beg that the House resumes and the Chairman reports progress on the bill.
Honorable members, the question is that this Honorable House resumes and the Chairman of the committee reports progress on the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. This Honorable House now resumes. Honorable members, I have to report that the bill was considered by a committee of the whole House and passed without amendment. Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the Chairman's report be adopted.
Honorable members, the question is that the Chairman's report be adopted. Those who have that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the third reading of the bill. Thanks.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a third time. Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a third time and pass. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. Indeed, the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Terrorism Amendment Bill 2024.
All right, before I take the Leader of Government Business, we have one more bill to be brought to the Parliament. It is, by my watch, 12:50. I suggest that we go to the last bill instead of breaking for lunch. Yeah? All right. Leader of Government Business. Leader of Government Business, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to introduce for its first reading a bill for an act shortly entitled Proceeds of Crime Amendment Bill 2024.
A bill which seeks to amend the Proceeds of Crime Act Number 6 of 2012 to enhance the integrated legislative framework to combat money laundering and terrorism financing, shortly entitled Proceeds of Crime Amendment Bill 2024.
Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the relevant standing order of the House be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all the stages at this sitting. Thanks.
Honorable members, the question is that the relevant standing order of the House be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all stages at this sitting. All those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the second reading of the bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a second time. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, like the two previous bills, this one also is part of that integrated legislative framework to combat money laundering and terrorist financing. This bill seeks to amend the Proceeds of Crime Act, number 6 of 2012, and contains 4 clauses. Clause 1 provides for the short title. Clause 2 provides for the amendment of Section 32 to establish a more dissuasive criminal penalty for failure to comply with the guidelines issued by the Anti-Money Laundering Commission from $50,000 to $100,000. Mr. Speaker, like the previous bills, this is underscoring the seriousness of terrorism and the consequences that it has on national economies. And so all of these bills are really seeking to dissuade people from being engaged in these types of activities. Clause 3, Mr. Speaker, provides for insertion of a new section 32A to establish dissuasive administrative penalties for contravention or specialized provision of the guidelines, with corresponding dissuasive penalties if the offense is treated as a summary conviction. This new section, Section 32A, would then replace the current Section 32, subsection 7. So, Speaker, Clause 4 provides for amendment of Section 63 to empower the Commission to compel for information to discharge its function. Again, Mr. Speaker, as the previous two bills, the importance of being able to get information by using the force of law. That's what this is trying to do. So it actually empowers the AML Commission to compel the perpetrator to provide information so that they can facilitate the work. So, Mr. Speaker, in a nutshell, this is what it is. It's a very short bill, but it's very important in the whole fight against money laundering and terrorist financing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Leader of Government Business. And like the others, there seems to be no input, so I invite the Leader of Government Business to close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure to thank the members of the House for their support on this bill. I now commend it to the House. Thanks.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a second time. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Proceeds of Crime Amendment Bill 2024.
Leader of government business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the House resolves itself into committee of the whole House to consider this bill clause by clause. Thanks.
Honorable members, the question is that this honorable House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill clause by clause. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. This honorable House is now in committee.
Clause 2, amendment of Section 32 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that clause 2 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 3, insertion of new Section 32A to Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that clause 3 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 4, insertion of Section 63 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that clause 4 forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 1, short title.
Honorable members, the question is that clause 1, short title, forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of government business.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I beg to move that the House resumes and that the chairman of the committee reports progress on the bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the House resumes and the chairman of the committee reports progress on the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. This honorable House now resumes. I have to report that the bill was considered by a committee of the whole House and passed without amendment. Leader of government business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the chairman's report be adopted.
Honorable members, the question is that the chairman's report be adopted. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of government business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the third reading of the bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a third time. Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a third time and passed. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Proceeds of Crime Amendment Bill 2024.
Item 16, request for leave to move the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance.
Green. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the House be adjourned, sine die.
Honorable members, the question is that the House be adjourned sine die. Those of that opinion say aye. Those contrary say no. Is carried. This honorable House is now adjourned sine die.